Get her out of my sight before she ruins anything else. Martin Cole's voice cut across La Stella's private dining room like a whip. Olivia Bennett stood beside the most dangerous man in the city, one hand bleeding the other, gripping a trembling silver tray. Red wine spread across Dante Moretti's white shirt and soaked into a suit worth more than Liv earned in a year. 30 guests had stopped breathing. At the center table, rival families sat beneath crystal chandeliers surrounded by bodyguards. Everyone knew Dante's reputation. He did not forgive carelessness or tolerate humiliation. Staff whispered that he had once destroyed a restaurant over a public insult. Now wine dripped from his cuff onto the white tablecloth. Martin seized Liv's elbow. "I warned everyone about you," he said loudly. "A woman as clumsy as you has no place serving people like this." Several guests glanced at Liv's body. Near the service door, Vanessa covered her mouth, pretending to be shocked. But the corner of her smile remained. Liv's knee burned from the fall. A shard of crystal had opened her palm. She wanted to explain that someone's foot had caught hers, that the fall felt wrong, that she had carried trays for 8 years without spilling a drop. But Martin tightened his grip. "Apologize," he hissed. "And pray Mr. Moretti is merciful." 2 of Dante's guards moved forward. One hand slipped beneath a jacket. Liv's heart slammed against her ribs. She thought of the rent due in 4 days, her sister's tuition, and her late mother's medical bills. Losing this job would crush what remained of their life. The man she had embarrassed could do far worse than fire her. "I'm sorry," Liv managed. "Mr. Moretti, Martin cut her off. "Sorry does not fix a $5,000 shirt. Sorry does not fix incompetence." Then Dante rose. The silence changed texture. Powerful men lowered their eyes. One rival slowly moved his hand away from the wine glass before him. Dante inspected the stain across his chest. Then his gaze dropped to Liv. She braced for fury. Instead, he reached for a folded napkin. Martin rushed to speak. "She'll be dismissed immediately. This employee has always been a problem." Dante ignored him and held the napkin toward Liv. "Are you hurt?" No one believed the question was meant for her. Liv stared at him. "Your hand," Dante said. Only then did she notice blood running between her fingers. "I'm fine. You're not." He signaled once, and both guards stopped. Martin still held her arm. Dante's eyes shifted to his hand. "Let her go." Martin released Liv so quickly he nearly stumbled. Dante pulled out the chair beside him. "Sit down." The quiet order carried more force than a shout. Liv hesitated. Servers were never allowed to sit before VIP guests. But Dante took her injured hand and pressed the clean cloth against the cut with surprising care. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Martin's face tightened. Dante Moretti was not angry about the wine. He was watching the people who were. His attention moved from Liv's scraped knee to the broken stem on the floor, then to the strange angle of the fallen tray. Finally, he noticed Vanessa's heel resting beyond the service line, exactly where Liv's foot had caught. He studied Martin. "Check the cameras," Dante said. Martin froze. "The system has been unreliable all week." Dante's thumb paused over the cloth in Liv's palm. That wasn't an answer. One of his men left the room. For the first time that night, Martin seemed afraid of something other than Dante's stained suit. Liv saw it. So did Dante. And on the table, inches from his untouched place setting, another glass of the same red wine waited beneath the chandelier light. No one knew why that glass mattered. No one knew why Martin needed Liv humiliated before the meeting ended. And no one understood that the woman they mocked had just interrupted a plan that would expose a betrayal and leave one of the most feared men owing his life to her. But to understand how one spilled glass began all of it, we have to go back 6 hours before the private guests arrived, before anyone questioned the cameras, and before Olivia Bennet was ordered into the one room she had never been allowed to serve. 6 hours earlier, La Stella was still empty. The chandeliers were dimmed. White tablecloths waited beneath glassware polished until it disappeared. In the kitchen, knives struck cutting boards in a steady rhythm. While the evening crew prepared for a private dinner no one was supposed to discuss. Olivia Bennet stood in the wine room with a pencil tucked behind one ear, counting bottles from memory. 6 Barolos, 12 Brunellos, 8 Amarones, she murmured. She checked the delivery sheet again. Then she counted the crates. The numbers did not match. Liv crouched beside the bottom shelf and ran her finger across a torn shipping label. One crate carried La Stella's name, but the seal belonged to a distributor the restaurant had stopped using months ago. She had noticed similar mistakes twice before. Expensive bottles appeared on invoices, yet cheaper wine arrived in their place. Other boxes came through the loading entrance and disappeared before reaching the inventory shelves. Whenever Liv asked questions, Martin told her to mind her station. So she had started remembering everything. Dates, bottle counts, delivery times, names printed on labels. Liv had always remembered details other people forgot. As a child, her mother called it her quiet superpower. At La Stella, it was one of the reasons Liv could serve a table of 12 without writing down a single order. It was also becoming dangerous. The wine room door opened. Martin Cole filled the doorway in a fitted black suit. Already wearing the expression he used whenever Liv occupied space, he had not granted her. "What are you doing, inventory? You're a server. You asked me to help after the delivery clerk left. I asked you to stack bottles, not investigate them." Liv rose slowly. "The invoice says 24 bottles of the Reserve Brunello. There are only 12. Martin took the sheet from her hand. "You counted wrong. I counted 3 times. His smile thinned. "Then count a 4th. Liv held his gaze for a moment. She had learned that arguing with Martin never ended with the argument. It ended with fewer shifts, worse tables, or a complaint appearing in her file. She moved past him. "Olivia." She stopped. Martin lowered his voice. "Tonight is important. Stay out of places you don't belong." It was the same sentence in a different form. He had said it when she asked to train new servers. He had said it when she applied for assistant floor manager. He had said it after a wealthy guest praised her service and asked why she never worked in the private room. Martin's reasons were never written down. They did not need to be. La Stella sold elegance, and in Martin's mind, elegance had a size. Liv returned to the dining floor and began setting water glasses. Her knees ached before the shift had even started, but she ignored it. She had worked through worse. At 3 that afternoon, a message from her landlord had arrived. Rent must be paid by Monday. 10 minutes later, her younger sister Emma had sent another. "Don't worry about the tuition balance. I can skip next semester." Liv had immediately called her. "You are not skipping anything." "Liv, you can't keep paying for everyone." "I'm not paying for everyone. I'm paying for you. That's the same thing." "No, it isn't." Emma had gone quiet. Since their mother died, Liv had become the person who solved things. She worked extra shifts, negotiated payment plans, stretched groceries, and ignored letters from the hospital until the red print became too threatening to ignore. The final year of their mother's treatment had left behind debt that seemed to reproduce in the dark. Emma believed Liv was strong enough to carry it. Liv made sure she never saw the cost. At 4:30, the staff gathered near the kitchen entrance. Martin stood before them with a printed seating chart. "This evening's dinner is private," he said. "No photographs, No questions. No unnecessary conversation. He pointed toward the private dining room. The guests are among the most influential people in the city. Some are political, some are financial. All expect discretion. Vanessa leaned toward another server and whispered, meaning they expect pretty faces. Liv heard her. She kept folding napkins. Vanessa had spent 2 years treating Liv's competence as a personal insult. When Liv remembered a guest's allergy, Vanessa called her desperate. When customers requested Liv's section, Vanessa said they felt sorry for her. Martin rarely corrected her. Sometimes he smiled. "The center table is restricted," Martin continued. "No one approaches unless assigned." A nervous busser raised his hand. "Who's sitting there?" Martin hesitated before answering. "Dante Moretti." The room went still. Even Liv knew the name. Dante owned construction companies, hotels, import businesses, and enough quiet influence to make inspectors disappear from a property for months. Newspapers called him a businessman. People who worked late in the city used a different word. Boss. Martin continued quickly. "Do not stare at him. Do not touch anything on his table unless necessary. Do not interrupt his conversation." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Who's serving him?" "I am," said a senior waiter named Paul. Relief passed through the staff. Liv returned to polishing silverware. Then Paul's phone rang. He stepped outside. When he came back, his face had drained of color. "My son was taken to the hospital," he said. "I have to leave." Martin cursed under his breath. He scanned the room, measuring everyone against the risk of Dante Moretti. His eyes passed over Liv once, then again. "No," Vanessa said quietly. Martin heard her. He also saw the clock. The first cars were already arriving outside. "Olivia," he said. Liv set down the cloth. "You'll cover the center table." Vanessa gave a short laugh. "You can't be serious. I'm not asking you." Martin approached Liv and adjusted a fork she had already aligned perfectly. "One mistake," he said, "and you are finished here." Liv felt the rent notice in her pocket. She pictured Emma closing her textbooks and telling the university she would not be returning. "I understand." Martin leaned closer. "You do exactly what you are told. You serve the wine. You clear the plates. You make yourself invisible." Liv nodded. But as she entered the private room to check the table, she saw something that made invisibility impossible. A bottle of the Reserve Brunello had already been opened. The dinner would not begin for another 20 minutes. Beside it sat a wooden crate with the same unfamiliar seal she had found in the wine room. Liv paused. Behind her, a shoe scraped against the marble. When she glanced back, Martin was standing in the doorway. His eyes moved from her face to the open bottle. Then he smiled. "Remember," he said, "tonight you saw nothing." By 7 o'clock, La Stella no longer felt like a restaurant. Black sedans lined the curb. Men in dark coats entered through separate doors, scanning corners before their employers followed. The private dining room filled with quiet conversations, expensive watches, and the kind of people who never waited for a table. Dante Moretti arrived last. He did not announce himself. He did not need to. The room adjusted around him. Conversations softened. A city councilman lowered his glass. 2 men from the rival Rinaldi family rose from their seats, then sat only after Dante did. Liv approached with water. She had expected someone loud, theatrical, eager to remind everyone of his power. Instead, Dante wore a charcoal suit and spoke in a controlled voice that made others lean closer. That restraint frightened her more. At his right sat Victor Rinaldi, Dante's longtime advisor, a silver-haired man with warm manners and watchful eyes. Across from them were representatives of the rival family involved in the ceasefire negotiation. Martin had described the dinner as delicate. Liv understood the meaning when she noticed every guest had arrived with protection. She placed each glass without touching a sleeve or interrupting a sentence. When one guest requested sparkling water with no ice, she remembered it. When another mentioned a shellfish allergy, she quietly warned the kitchen before the first course left the pass. Dante noticed. He noticed almost everything. When Liv returned with the bread service, his attention rested briefly on the tray balanced against her palm. Not her body, not her uniform. The work. Efficient, Victor said, watching her distribute the plates. Martin appeared behind Liv before she could respond. She has been thoroughly instructed. The compliment had not been directed at him, but he accepted it anyway. Liv moved to the next chair. Martin followed her into the service corridor. Do not speak unless a guest asks you a direct question. I didn't speak. You were about to. I was serving bread. His jaw tightened. You think being competent makes you important? No. I think it makes me competent. A dishwasher nearby lowered his head to hide a reaction. Martin waited until they were alone. You are standing in that room because I had no alternative. Do not mistake desperation for trust. Liv checked the next course against the seating chart. Table 3 has a dairy restriction. I know. The sauce contains butter. I said I know. Then why is it on the plate? Martin's hand closed around the edge of the service cart. For 1 second, something sharp appeared beneath his polished manager's smile. Then Vanessa entered, carrying clean glasses. Martin released the cart. Replace the sauce, he told the kitchen. Liv said nothing. Vanessa waited until Martin walked away. You enjoy embarrassing him, don't you? I stopped someone from getting sick. You always make it sound noble. Liv checked the glasses for fingerprints. It usually sounds simple when you tell the truth. Vanessa leaned against the counter. You know why he doesn't put you in private dining? Liv kept working. He says guests come here for an experience, Vanessa continued. They don't want someone who looks like you leaning over their table. The words were familiar enough to have lost their surprise, but not their weight. Liv placed the final glass on the tray. Then it must be frustrating that they keep asking for me. Vanessa's smile vanished. Outside the corridor, a chair scraped. Both women returned to the dining room. The first course had ended, and the negotiation was becoming tense. One of the rival men pushed a folder toward Dante. The roots remained divided as agreed. Dante did not open it. The roots are not the issue, he said. Missing shipments are. Victor rested a calming hand near his glass. There have been accounting errors on both sides. Liv slowed beside the service station. Missing shipments. Accounting errors. The words carried her back to the wine room, the false invoices, the unfamiliar distributor, the crates that vanished before inventory. Martin appeared at her shoulder. Move. Liv lifted the empty plates. As she cleared Victor's setting, she noticed a mark stamped on the folder beside his hand, a narrow crest inside a circle, the same symbol printed on the crate. Her fingers paused for half a second. Victor covered the folder with his palm. Their eyes met. His expression remained pleasant. Is something wrong? He asked. Liv forced herself to breathe. No, sir. Martin took the plates from her too quickly. She's nervous, he said. This is her first important table. Dante's voice came from the center of the room. Everyone has a first important table. Liv glanced toward him. He was not smiling, but the remark had shifted the balance. Martin could not insult her further without challenging the man he feared most. Of course, Martin said. In the kitchen, he shoved the plates onto a counter hard enough to crack one. You do not examine guests' documents. I saw a symbol. You saw nothing. It was on the wine delivery, too. Martin's face changed. Only briefly. But Liv saw it. He moved closer, blocking the corridor. You have rent problems, don't you? Her stomach tightened. Martin tapped the pocket of her apron where her phone rested. You leave personal messages visible. Careless. Liv realized he had seen the landlord's notice. And your sister is still in college. Leave Emma out of this. I'm offering advice. People with responsibilities should protect their employment. It was not a warning anymore. It was leverage. Martin lowered his voice. Finish the dinner. Forget the invoices. Forget the crates. By tomorrow you may still have a job. Then he walked away. Liv stood motionless beside the service station. She could leave. She could untie her apron, call Emma, and admit that the semester might have to wait. It would hurt, but it would be safer than remaining inside a room where sealed crates, false wine, and armed men appeared connected. Then a young kitchen porter entered carrying a case of bottles. He could not have been older than 19. Martin stopped him and pointed toward the private room. Take those to the service station. The porter read the label. These aren't on the list. Do as you're told. Liv recognized the unfamiliar seal. The case was the last one from the hidden shipment. Martin saw her watching. He smiled as if he had already won. Liv crossed the kitchen and took the case from the porter. I'll carry it. The boy looked relieved. She brought the bottles to the service station, but before placing them on the shelf, she turned one so the lot number faced outward. Then she memorized every digit. It was a small act. Quiet enough that no one reacted. But Liv had made her choice. She would finish the shift. She would keep watching. And when Martin finally ordered the reserve wine poured, she would know exactly which bottle reached Dante Moretti's glass. The second course began with a change no one explained. Martin removed the bottle Liv had positioned at the service station and replaced it with another from the same crate. The labels matched, but the glass carried a faint scratch near the base. Liv had memorized the lot number. This one was different. She waited until Martin moved away, then checked the discarded bottle beneath the counter. Its cork was still sealed. The replacement had already been opened. A server passing behind her whispered, "You're blocking the aisle." Liv shifted aside. Across the room, Victor continued speaking about shipping routes and damaged partnerships. His tone remained calm, but every answer redirected suspicion away from him and toward the rival family. Dante listened without touching the wine before him. Martin approached Liv with a silver decanter. Pour the center table. She accepted it, but did not move. Which bottle did this come from? His expression hardened. The Reserve Brunello, the sealed one, the correct one. I need the bottle for presentation. No, you don't. L'Estella's service rules required every premium wine to be shown before pouring. Martin had enforced that rule on other servers with humiliating precision. Now he wanted it forgotten. Liv kept her voice low. Guests are supposed to confirm the label. I am the manager, and that is the restaurant's policy. Martin leaned close enough for her to smell mint on his breath. Your policy tonight is obedience. He took the decanter from her and handed it to Vanessa. You serve the wine. Vanessa hesitated. For all her cruelty, she had never been comfortable around Martin when his voice became that quiet. Go, he ordered. She entered the private room. Liv followed with clean glasses, using the task as an excuse to remain nearby. Vanessa moved clockwise around the table, pouring carefully. When she reached Dante, Victor continued talking, drawing everyone's attention toward a map spread between them. The dark wine rose inside Dante's glass. Liv watched Martin. He was not watching the service. He was watching Dante's hand. A cold pressure settled in her chest. She could not accuse anyone. She had no proof that the opened bottle contained anything more dangerous than counterfeit wine. If she disrupted the meeting based on instinct, Martin would fire her before she finished the sentence. But if she stayed silent, and someone was harmed, she would carry that choice forever. Dante reached toward his glass. Liv stepped forward. "Mr. Moretti." Every conversation stopped. Martin's face tightened. Dante paused. Yes, Liv could feel the guards studying her. "The wine has not been presented for approval." Martin gave a strained laugh. "A minor service oversight." "I approved it personally." Dante's attention moved between them. "Liv said I can bring the bottle." "There is no need," Martin replied. "That decision belongs to the guest." The words escaped before Liv could soften them. A rival representative smirked. Victor's expression remained pleasant, but his fingers stopped moving across the map. Dante settled back in his chair. "Bring it." Martin followed Liv into the corridor. The instant the door closed, he seized the decanter from her hands. "Do you understand what you just did? I followed procedure. You challenged me in front of the entire room. You changed the bottle." His anger became still. "You have no idea what you're talking about. The lot number doesn't match." Martin stared at her. Liv knew then that she had crossed the line he had been guarding all evening. He opened the staff cabinet and pulled out her handbag. "You're leaving. My shift isn't over. It is now." He shoved the bag against her chest. "You are suspended pending termination." Liv's fingers closed around the strap. For asking to show a wine label for insubordination, unauthorized access to inventory, and creating a disturbance during a private event. "You're making this up." "I am documenting a pattern." "A pattern of what?" His gaze moved over her slowly. "Of someone who refuses to understand how she appears to others." The kitchen noise faded behind her. Martin continued in a professional tone, as though he were delivering an evaluation. "You make guests uncomfortable. You take up too much space in narrow service areas. You question instructions because you think competence excuses your lack of presentation." Liv had heard versions of those words for years. From customers, from her former boyfriend, from men who disguised contempt as concern. But Martin had finally said them clearly enough that neither of them could pretend. "You never kept me out of the private room because I lacked experience," she said. "I kept you where you belonged." Vanessa appeared at the corridor entrance. Martin's voice changed immediately. "Escort Olivia to the staff exit." Vanessa glanced at Liv's bag. "What happened?" "She endangered the service." "I asked about a bottle," Liv said. Martin pointed toward the rear hallway. "Take her out." Vanessa did not move. For a moment, guilt passed across her face. Then fear replaced it. "Come on, Liv." Liv could have obeyed. The rent notice pressed against her phone. Emma's tuition deadline was less than 2 weeks away. Martin controlled her schedule, her reference, and the version of the story every future employer might hear. Walking out quietly would preserve the smallest chance of getting another job. Then Liv noticed the porter entering the wine room again. He carried 2 empty wooden boxes. One bore the unfamiliar crest. The other was marked with the name of Dante Moretti's import company. Martin intercepted him. "Those go downstairs. The loading door is locked," the porter said. "Use my key." He handed the boy a brass ring. Liv recognized one key from weeks of closing shifts. It opened the records office beside the cellar. Martin was not sending empty boxes away. He was sending them toward the books. Liv set down her handbag. I need my final pay in writing. Martin blinked. What if I'm suspended? Give me the reason and effective time in writing. You'll receive it later. I want it now. The request was ordinary, but it trapped him. A written notice would create a record of when he removed her from the room minutes after she questioned the wine. Martin understood. So this is what you're doing, he asked. You think you can threaten me? I'm protecting myself. Vanessa's eyes moved between them. Martin reached into his jacket and removed his phone. Fine, wait in the office. Liv knew the office held the inventory logs. She also knew Martin would never leave her alone inside it. That meant he would have to keep her nearby while the dinner continued. A quiet victory. But it cost her the last illusion that she could return to her old life after tonight. Martin guided her into the small records room and remained in the doorway while typing the suspension notice. Shelves of invoices covered the walls. Delivery folders were stacked beside a locked cabinet. Liv's attention caught on a ledger lying open beneath a restaurant menu. One column listed wine purchases. Another contained coded initials and shipment dates. At the bottom of the page, tonight's date had been circled. Beside it were 2 letters. D.M. Martin saw where she was staring and slammed the ledger shut. You really don't know when to stop. A notification sounded from his phone. He read it, then smiled. Your landlord has been trying to reach you. Liv's throat tightened. How would you know that you listed La Stella as your employer on your rental application? People verify things. He held the phone where she could see a message draft addressed to the property manager. It stated that Olivia Bennett had been terminated for theft and misconduct. That's false. Then leave quietly, and perhaps I won't send it. He had moved beyond threatening her job. He was threatening her home, her sister's stability, and the reputation Liv had built one exhausting shift at a time. For several seconds, fear told her to take the bargain. Then she remembered her mother in a hospital bed, too tired to speak, squeezing Liv's hand whenever the bills arrived. Survival had taught Liv to endure cruelty. It had never required her to help hide it. Send whatever you want, she said. I'm not signing anything? Martin's thumb hovered above the screen. A knock sounded from the corridor. One of Dante's guards stood outside. Mr. Moretti wants the original bottle presented. Martin slipped the phone into his pocket. I'll handle it. The guard remained where he was. He asked for the server. Liv picked up the sealed bottle from the desk where Martin had left it after removing her from service. As she passed him, his voice dropped. If you walk back into that room, you lose everything. Liv paused. Then she opened the door. Maybe she said, but you're going to lose whatever you're trying this hard to hide. Liv returned to the private room carrying the sealed bottle. Dante had not touched the wine in his glass. Martin entered behind her, smiling too quickly. A simple misunderstanding, he said. Olivia became confused during service. Liv placed the bottle beside Dante's setting. This is the bottle listed for the table. Dante compared it with the wine already poured. The labels are identical, Victor said. The lot numbers aren't. Liv replied. Martin laughed. She works from memory and thinks that makes her an expert. Dante lifted the sealed bottle and studied the number near its base. Then he checked the decanter. Where is the other bottle? Martin spread his hands. Probably discarded after opening. Liv heard the lie before the sentence ended. Nothing at La Stella was discarded until Martin recorded it. Not a cork, not a damaged label, not a half-empty bottle worth hundreds of dollars. Dante's guard moved toward the service corridor. Martin blocked him. The storage areas are restricted for insurance reasons. The guard stopped only when Dante raised one finger. Then show us the camera footage, Dante said. Martin's practiced smile weakened. As I mentioned, the system has been unreliable. Victor leaned back. Dante, we are delaying an important negotiation over a server's confusion. Liv felt every guest measuring her. The room had already decided who was credible. A respected advisor, a polished manager, or a large woman in a stained uniform who had been told she was lucky to be present. Martin seized that advantage. She has been unstable for weeks, he said. Obsessed with invoices, questioning deliveries, wandering into areas outside her responsibility. I was assigned to inventory. You were told to stack bottles. You threatened to report me for theft if I asked questions. A few guests exchanged glances. Martin's voice sharpened. Enough. He faced Dante. I apologize that you have been dragged into an employment matter. Olivia has financial problems, and I believe the pressure has affected her judgment. Liv's stomach tightened. Martin continued before she could stop him. She is behind on rent. She supports a sister she cannot afford to support. Her wages are being garnished for medical debt. Unfortunately, desperate employees sometimes invent accusations when they fear termination. The humiliation struck deeper than any insult about her body. He had taken the private architecture of her life, her mother's illness, Emma's tuition, the overdue rent, and placed it on the table for strangers to examine. Liv heard Vanessa inhale near the service door. Martin mistook her silence for defeat. She has also displayed inappropriate behavior toward guests, he said. Tonight, she interrupted confidential discussions and tampered with wine service. I did not tamper with anything. You removed a bottle from its assigned station to compare the lot number, without authorization. Dante's gaze settled on Liv. Did you open either bottle numb? Did you pour the wine? Numb. Vanessa lowered her eyes. She had poured it. Martin saw the movement and moved quickly. Vanessa can confirm that Olivia has been hostile all evening. Every face shifted toward her. Vanessa's lips parted. Liv knew what Martin expected her to say. She also knew Vanessa was raising a child alone. One complaint could cost her rent, childcare, and the only schedule that allowed her to see her son before bed. Liv could expose years of insults in one sentence. She could tell Dante that Vanessa had mocked her, undermined her, and repeated Martin's cruelty whenever it earned approval. Instead, she said Vanessa followed instructions. Vanessa stared at her. Martin's confidence returned. There. Even Olivia admits it. I said she followed instructions. I didn't say whose. A chair shifted. Dante's voice remained calm. Vanessa Martin answered for her. She has nothing to add. Dante did not raise his volume. I asked Vanessa. Her hands began to shake. I poured the wine, she said. Mr. Cole gave me the decanter. Did you see him fill it? No. Martin's jaw tightened. Did Olivia touch it? No. The first crack appeared in his story. He reached for Vanessa's arm and guided her toward the corridor. You're upset. Go take a break. Dante's guard moved between them. Martin withdrew his hand. Liv noticed Victor watching the exchange without surprise. He seemed less interested in whether Martin was lying than in how much had already been discovered. That frightened her. Dante noticed something else. His attention dropped toward the floor near Liv's shoes. A shallow scrape marked the marble where her tray had struck earlier. Beyond it, Vanessa's heel rested across the service path. Dante rose. He examined the distance between the mark Vanessa's foot and the place where Liv had fallen. Then he addressed Liv. "Tell me exactly what happened." "I was carrying the tray behind the center table. My foot caught on something." "Did you see what number to Vanessa began to cry?" Martin's face hardened into command. "This has gone far enough. Security will remove both employees." 2 restaurant guards appeared at the main entrance. Martin pointed at Liv first. "Take her outside." 1 guard approached. Dante moved between them. He did not reach for a weapon. He simply occupied the space. "No one touches her." The guard stopped. Martin's voice cracked. "This is my restaurant. It belongs to a holding company," Dante said. "You manage it. And she is my employee. She is injured. She caused the injury herself." Dante glanced at the blood soaking through the cloth around Liv's palm. "The first thing you protected was my shirt. The second was your camera system. At no point did you ask whether she needed medical care." Martin's face flushed. "She is a low-level server creating chaos at a private event." Dante's voice dropped. "Status does not determine dignity. The way a man treats someone with less power tells me exactly who he is." No one spoke after that. Martin had lost control of the room and he knew it. So he crossed the only line he had left. He pulled out his phone and opened a document. "This is Olivia Bennett's termination notice," he announced. "Effective immediately for theft, misconduct, and endangering guests." "That is false," Liv said. "You can challenge it through the proper process." "You mean after you send it to my landlord?" Martin smiled. It confirmed everything. Liv reached into her apron and removed her own phone. "I recorded our conversation in the office." Martin's smile disappeared. She had not planned to record him. When he mentioned her landlord, her hand had moved inside her pocket and pressed the side button almost by instinct. A quiet act of self-protection. Now the device held his threat. Martin lunged for it. Dante's guard caught his wrist before he reached her. The room erupted into movement. 1 rival representative stood. Another reached beneath his coat. Dante's men closed ranks while Victor raised both hands, urging calm. In the confusion, Vanessa backed toward the service door. Liv saw Martin glance at her. A command passed between them. Vanessa's face crumpled. Then she did what Liv had feared from the moment she entered the room. She thrust her foot into the path of Liv's tray. Liv lost her balance. Crystal struck marble. Red wine exploded across Dante's white shirt. A shard opened Liv's palm, and pain shot through her knee as she fell. For several seconds, the entire room watched Martin humiliate her, watched Vanessa pretend concern, and waited for Dante Moretti to respond with the fury that had made his name feared across the city. Instead, he asked whether Liv was hurt. Now, with the recording still active in her hand that moment, carried new meaning. Dante's men reached the security room. Martin tried to shut down the system remotely, but he was too late. One of the guards returned carrying a tablet. "We recovered the dining room feed." Martin's voice became desperate. "The footage is corrupted." The guard placed the tablet on the table. The video began. It showed Vanessa watching Liv approach. It showed her extend 1 foot into the aisle. Then 5 seconds before she did it, the camera captured Martin near the service station. He met Vanessa's eyes and gave a small, unmistakable signal. Vanessa covered her face. Martin stopped breathing. But Dante was no longer watching either of them. On the recording behind Martin, Victor could be seen removing the opened bottle from the wooden crate. He passed it to the manager. Then he checked his watch as Dante lifted his glass. The truth had not fully arrived yet, but for the first time, everyone in the room could see its shadow. Victor was the first to recover. He gave a quiet laugh and adjusted his cuff. "A blurry camera angle proves nothing. I moved a bottle. Martin mishandled an employee. Neither fact connects me to sabotage." Martin seized the explanation like a rope. "Exactly. Vanessa caused the accident because she resented Olivia. I may have encouraged stricter discipline, but I knew nothing about poisoned wine or missing shipments. Vanessa lowered her hands from her face. You told me to trip her. Martin did not acknowledge her. You said she had been stealing, Vanessa continued. You said Mr. Moretti would demand she be fired if she embarrassed him in front of everyone. That is not what I said. You promised to promote me. Her voice shook, but each word became clearer. You told me to wait until she carried the wine behind his chair. You gave me the signal. Martin faced the guests. She is trying to save herself. I am trying to tell the truth. It was the first time Vanessa had spoken without checking Martin's reaction. Dante's guard replayed the footage. The room watched Martin give the signal. They watched Vanessa extend her heel. They watched Liv fall at the exact moment Dante began lifting the glass. The video confirmed the sabotage. It did not yet explain why the fall mattered. Victor leaned toward Dante. You are allowing a workplace dispute to derail a peace agreement. That is precisely what our rivals want. One of the rival representatives stood. Our family did not hire these employees. But your crest appears on the shipment folder, Liv said. Every head shifted toward her. Victor's polite expression finally broke. Liv pressed the cloth against her injured palm and continued. The same crest was stamped on the wooden crate in the wine room. I saw it again on the route documents beside you. That symbol is used by several distributors, Victor said. Then the lot numbers should still match. She asked Dante's guard for the sealed bottle. He placed it before her. Liv read the number near the base, then gave the number she had memorized from the opened bottle. The guard checked the decanter and confirmed they were different. Martin interrupted, even if she remembered correctly. Restaurants replace bottles during service. Not without recording them, Liv said. You taught me that. She addressed the room rather than Martin. La Stella charges guests for reserve wine, but some deliveries contain cheaper bottles with copied labels. Other crates enter through the loading bay and never appear in the inventory. The purchase totals stay the same, so the missing value can be moved somewhere else. Victor's voice cooled. A server is offering financial analysis. Now I have been balancing tables, invoices, and household bills for years. Numbers do not become invisible because the person reading them wears an apron. Dante said nothing. He let her speak. That choice gave Liv more authority than any defense he could have made for her. Martin pointed toward the sealed bottle. She has no evidence of what was inside the other one. Liv's phone was still recording. She placed it on the table and played the conversation from the records office. Martin's voice filled the room. People with responsibilities should protect their employment. Then came his threat to accuse her of theft and contact her landlord. The recording ended with Liv refusing to sign. Martin's face lost its color. This proves I intended to terminate her. Nothing more. It proves you needed her discredited before she could report the records, Dante said. Victor pushed back his chair. We have wasted enough time. Dante's guards blocked both exits. No one leaves. Victor's hand drifted toward his jacket. 3 weapons appeared beneath the chandeliers. Dante remained seated. Remove your hand. Victor obeyed, but his eyes hardened. A guard entered from the kitchen carrying the opened bottle inside a clear evidence bag. We found it behind the cellar furnace. Martin stared at the floor. The guard placed a small handheld test kit beside it. The preliminary screen detected a foreign compound. Victor scoffed. A restaurant test cannot identify poison. No, Dante said. But it can tell us not to drink. He signaled to one of the rival representatives. Call your physician. Use someone neither family controls. The man made the call. During the wait, no one touched the table. The wine stain on Dante's shirt had darkened toward brown. Liv could hear the ventilation system, Vanessa's uneven breathing, and the faint click of Martin's phone vibrating unanswered in his pocket. 20 minutes later, Dr. Aaron Pierce arrived with a portable emergency kit and a sealed collection case. He took samples from Dante's glass, the decanter, and the recovered bottle. He repeated the test twice. Then he removed his gloves. "The wine contains a fast-acting cardiac agent," he said. "At a sufficient dose, it could cause sudden heart failure and appear natural without specialized testing." The words moved through the room without sound. Dante stared at the untouched glass before him. Everyone remembered the same moment. His fingers had been closing around it when Liv spoke. Then Martin tried to remove her. Then Vanessa sent her falling. The wine covered Dante's shirt instead of reaching his mouth. The room understood before Victor did. He was still trying to shape the story. The bottle could have been altered after it left the table. Dr. Pierce shook his head. "The glass and decanter contained the same compound." Victor's voice sharpened. Then Martin acted alone. Martin snapped. "You brought the bottle." A silence followed that no one could repair. Victor stared at him. Martin backed away. "You gave me the crate. You said Dante would drink during the toast. You said the rivals would be blamed and I would keep the restaurant after the investigation." The rival representatives rose together. Victor's control collapsed. "He is lying." Liv remembered the ledger. "The records office," she said. "There is an open book under a menu. Tonight's date is circled beside Dante's initials. The shipment codes match the lot number from the opened bottle." One of the guards left at once. Victor tried to move toward the exit. Dante's men restrained him. Martin began speaking rapidly. "I only changed invoices. I never agreed to murder. Victor said the substance would make him ill. He said the meeting would end nothing more." Vanessa's expression filled with disgust. "You knew enough to make me trip her." Martin pointed at Liv. "She would have destroyed everything." "No," Liv said. "I would have reported what you did." The ledger arrived in a clear sleeve. Its entries linked La Stella's false wine purchases to coded shipments routed through companies controlled by Victor. The supporting figures matched the dates Liv had memorized, including the crate delivered that afternoon. The camera showed the bottle. The ledger showed the system behind it. And Liv's fall had preserved the one thing Victor could not replace: Dante's life. Victor twisted against the guards. "You are going to throw away an alliance because a waitress spilled a drink." Dante rose carefully. "No. The alliance ended when you tried to murder everyone at this table." One rival representative studied the records. "The quantities are too large for one target." Dr. Pierce checked the remaining glasses. 2 more contained traces of the compound. The plan had never been only to kill Dante. Victor intended to poison men from both families, ignite a war, and seize the routes while each side blamed the other. Dante's hand closed into a fist. For one dangerous second, everyone expected him to end the matter with violence. Liv spoke before he could issue the order. "Keep him alive." Dante's gaze moved to her. "He tried to kill you," she said. "He threatened everyone here. If you kill him now, the rest of the network disappears with him." Victor gave a bitter smile. "She thinks courts will protect her." "This is not about protecting me," Liv replied. "It is about making the truth larger than one room." She held Dante's gaze. "If you want this to end, let him testify. Let the records be examined. Let every person he paid know he cannot bury them by dying." The anger in Dante's face did not vanish. It changed direction. He ordered the weapons lowered. "Call the authorities. Preserve every bottle camera file, invoice, and device. No one leaves until statements are taken." Martin stared at him. "You cannot involve the police." Dante's answer was cold. "Watch me." Before the night ended, the restaurant was sealed pending investigation. Outside counsel was brought in to preserve the financial records, and detectives took control of the cellar office and security system. Victor Martin and their accomplices were detained for questioning. Formal charges would require laboratory confirmation and a wider investigation, but the conspiracy could no longer be hidden. As officers led Martin through the dining room, he stopped beside Liv. "You think this makes you important?" Liv stood with her injured hand bandaged and her uniform stained. "No," she said. "It proves I was telling the truth before anyone thought I mattered." He had no answer. After the room emptied, Dante remained beside the table. He touched the wine stain across his shirt. "You apologized for ruining this." Liv followed his gaze. "I did ruin it." "No." He moved the poisoned glass farther from the edge. "You saved my life." Liv's expression tightened. "I do not want to become a debt you think you have to repay." Dante considered her words. "What I owe you is not the same as what I feel." She did not ask him to explain. Not yet. A siren flashed against the windows as evidence boxes were carried from La Stella. The plot had been exposed, but Victor's network was larger than the restaurant. Liv had seen the books, remembered the codes, and challenged the people who needed her silent. That made her more than a witness. It made her the next target. The investigation expanded before sunrise. Laboratory testing confirmed the poison in the wine. Financial analysts traced Victor's coded shipments through La Stella, while security footage and Liv's recording supported the charges against Martin. Vanessa gave a full statement. She admitted that jealousy had made Martin's offer easy to accept. She had wanted Liv embarrassed and removed from the private room. She had never known the wine was poisoned, but she understood that ignorance did not erase what she had done. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she told Liv outside the courthouse weeks later. Liv studied the exhausted woman before her. "I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen." Vanessa nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "But you can tell the truth." Liv continued. "Every time they ask. That is how you take responsibility." Vanessa became a cooperating witness. Martin was charged with fraud, conspiracy, evidence tampering, and his role in the poisoning plot. Victor faced far more serious charges as investigators uncovered the network he had built through shipping companies, restaurants, and corrupt intermediaries. The rival families avoided the war he had planned. Dante kept Victor alive just as Liv had asked. That decision cost him pride, but it gave investigators names, accounts, and roots that revenge would have buried forever. La Stella closed during the investigation. Liv was publicly cleared of every accusation, and the termination notice Martin had prepared was withdrawn. Employees who had lost wages received compensation from the restaurant's ownership group, and outside management reviewed years of complaints that Martin had ignored or concealed. The camera footage leaked before the case reached court. Millions of people watched red wine strike Dante's shirt. They watched Liv fall, Martin humiliate her, and the city's most feared man offer her a napkin before anyone else offered help. Reporters called her the waitress who accidentally saved a Mafia boss. Liv refused every interview that used that description. "I did more than fall," she told the one journalist she agreed to speak with. "I noticed the records. I questioned the bottle. I preserved the evidence. Please do not turn my work into luck." For once, the headline changed. Liv used part of her compensation to enroll in restaurant management courses. She studied payroll, supply chains, employment law, and food safety while working mornings at a neighborhood cafe. Dante offered no money. He had offered once, and Liv had declined. "I will not build my future from your guilt," she told him. "It isn't guilt." "Then respect my answer." He did. Months passed before Liv trusted that his silence was not another form of pressure. He asked questions instead of issuing instructions. When she disagreed with him, he listened long enough to understand why. Dante began changing parts of his own world. He moved several businesses under legitimate management-cut ties with violent operations and created transparent support funds for the families of men who had died working for him. It did not erase his past, and Liv never pretended it did. Change, she reminded him, was not a speech. It was a pattern. A year after La Stella closed, its former dining room reopened as a training center for hospitality workers. New owners partnered with local restaurants to teach management service and employee protection. Dante asked Liv to meet him there after the opening ceremony. The old center table remained beneath the restored chandelier. He had placed 2 glasses of red wine on it. Liv stopped several feet away. "You are either very brave or very foolish. Both have been suggested." Dante pulled out her chair, then deliberately pushed the wine farther from the edge. Liv laughed. The sound softened something in his face. "Everyone believed that night was the worst mistake of your life," he said. "For me, it was the luckiest moment of mine." Liv sat across from him. "Do you love me because I saved you? No." His answer came without hesitation. "I love you because fear never decided who you were. Neither did cruelty. Neither did I." Liv studied the man who had once believed protection meant control. "And what exactly are you asking for? Not ownership. Not obedience." He rested his hands on the table, leaving the space between them open. "I am asking whether you will build something equal with me." Liv gave him her conditions. No controlling her movements, no threatening people in her name, no hiding the truth because he believed it would protect her. Dante accepted each one. "And when you forget," she asked, "you remind me." "No. When you forget, I leave." A faint smile reached his eyes. "Then I will remember." Liv reached across the table and took his hand. It was not gratitude. It was not rescue. It was her choice. 6 months later, Liv opened the second location of her own restaurant. Every employee received transparent wages, written promotion standards, and protection from abusive customers. People were hired for skill and character, not whether they matched someone else's definition of elegance. After completing her legal obligations, Vanessa applied for a position. Liv did not erase the past. She offered a probationary role and one honest opportunity to become better than the woman Martin had manipulated. On opening night, Liv entered the dining room wearing a bright red dress. She no longer tried to make herself smaller. Guests filled every table. Emma stood near the entrance home from college and proudly introducing her sister as the owner. Dante sat among the customers and paid his bill like everyone else. A young server approached his table carrying a tray of wine. Someone moved a chair behind her and the tray tilted. One full glass poured across Dante's jacket. The entire room froze. The server's face filled with terror. Liv folded her arms and waited. Dante examined the stain. Then he picked up a clean napkin and handed it to the young woman. "Are you hurt?" The server blinked. "No, sir. Good. Then we only lost a shirt." The tension broke into relieved laughter. Liv smiled from across the room. Dante accepted a fresh glass and raised it toward her. "Perhaps the best things in my life begin with spilled wine." Liv lifted her own glass. But the lesson was never that accidents create miracles. It was that dignity can survive humiliation. Truth can begin with one person refusing to stay silent and real. Love does not rescue someone by taking away their power. It stands beside them while they reclaim it. What would you have done in Liv's place? Walked away to protect your job, or risked everything to expose the truth? Share your answer in the comments and subscribe for more stories about ordinary people whose courage changes the entire room.